that was really the moment where I was like, yo, I got to really get in tune with my emotions. And so
Yeah. So what do you think it means to be a good man? What
absolutely. My name is Terrence Whidbee. I'm located in North Carolina. I'm from a small town in North Carolina. I'm born and raised. Grew up here. I've had a lot of different experiences that have shaped, the man I am today. And I guess you can also equate that to a lot of masculinity traits that I picked up along the way and that I personally developed through experiences. And I'm interested in joining you guys today to have this discussion because being able to share my background maybe can help other people that comes from a similar demographic to me, and also from those who may not come from a similar demographic. They can kind of understand our perspective and why we may do a lot of things that we do and why we feel the way we feel as well. So that was really my premise for wanting to, join you guys. And also, I just support the work that you guys are doing. Is good work. And I'm definitely supportive of that.
Cool. Yeah, appreciate that. So you were talking about like things that made you the man you are today. So I'm curious, like, where do you think you learned like your perspective on masculinity or what it means to be a man? Like, what were the sources of learning for you?
The community I grew up in, that played a gigantic role, and the man helped shape the man I was in today. Growing up, my father, he drove long distance trucks, and so he was on the road a lot, and so a lot of my father figures came from people in my family, whether that be my grandfather, my uncle, older cousins, and even teachers. Male teachers, they played a big role in that as well. Because my dad, he couldn't be as consistent as he wanted to be in my life because of the job he had, and then later on down the line, due to relationship issues that I seen firsthand, he wasn't present as he wanted to be. And it's something that I grew to understand, but as a child, you don't understand, a lot of these, I guess you can call them big emotions at the time or adult emotions and what's really going on. And so as a kid, I started to internalize a lot of things that I was seeing. And so I would guess to answer your question, some of the traits that you picked up is, not really showing my emotions, being closed off to the world at times. And a lot of times I channeled what I was feeling through humor. So I was a class clown in school. And also I was super intelligent though. And so I had a balance. It wasn't like I was just out here clowning. I still was intelligent. I still loved to read and stuff. But a lot of times now looking back, I do believe that humor was just a way for me to channel things that I was going through at home that I couldn't grapple with. And so having closed off feelings, and also believing that a man is supposed to be like that. And I didn't grow up with really many men sharing their emotions deeply and vulnerable. I would see sometimes they would cry, but most of the time when the expression I seen from men was anger and rage. And that was a big theme that I seen a lot was anger, rage, and being aggressive. And that was some of the traits that I picked up. Also with being tough, I think that's a common thread, regardless of where you grow up at. And also being cool. And that was a trait that I guess like a lot of dudes that I grew up, my peers that I grew up with wanted to have. You just wanted to be cool, man. And and that was something that stood out.
Yeah, no, there's so many good themes in there. I think one of them for sure, like on expressing emotion, you kind of ticked off some of the few emotions that are acceptable, like being the funny one or the angry one or the tough one. Those are kind of the commonly accepted ones, but there's a whole range of ones that need to be expressed to be able to like make progress in your life. And you also mentioned like when you're young and growing up, you don't have the context, right, of like things going on around you. And so those big emotions, they just hit you straight up. There's no understanding of like, oh, this person's working on this, or they yelled at me because of this. You only just really feel the emotions, and it's really important to like work through that later on. So I'm curious, like, what was your kind of realization that, okay, this might not be the healthiest way to kind of bottle everything up. Maybe I should start like allowing myself to express myself more. What was that process like? Was there like a mentor or something you saw online, or like how did you kind of realize like, okay, this might not be the healthiest way to like go about it?
Great question. It was a couple mediums that helped expedite that process for me. I would say starting in early on in high school, I was a very observant person. So I always gravitated towards, for some reason, strong men. And I don't know if that was because I was trying to fill a void from, my father not being as present as I wanted to and having that connection. So whether that was coaches, whether that was like teachers I had, they really played a big influence in the way I saw myself. And they were one of the people who believed in me a lot of times and instilling that confidence in me. So a lot of my confidence did come from those positive affirmations of people saying, yo, you are smart. You're a talented guy. You are good at this, whether that was something sports related or, something intellectual. And so I would want to shout out one person who really had a big impact on me was my teacher, my English teacher in high school. I always talk about him, Mr. Terrell. He played a big part in my development because he helped me channel a lot of my emotions through poetry and my writing. So I was always a writer, and I always loved poetry and just the art of putting words together, whether it was through like music, but poetry was something I gravitated to. And Mr. Terrell helped me understand the value of going through those feelings and emotions. And funny quick story. I had my first heartbreak in high school, which I think a lot of people do. Going through high school, people figuring everything out, emotions all over the place, right? And so I was with this girl I was in love at the time, or this idea I thought of what being in love was, and we ended up breaking up due to a lot of multitude of reasons. And I cried, man, and I was in class, and I had wrote a very very emotional prompt because we could do free writes on Friday. It so happened to be on one of the free writes days, and I wrote a very very emotional uh, actually, this wasn't one of the free write days. I just chose to do a free write. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote a very emotional piece. And it wasn't a poem. It was just me talking about an experience that I went through.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in the classroom kind of knew because of how things were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got up and, Mr. Torres said, step outside. We stepped outside and he was talking to me. He said, Terrence, how you feeling, man? And I opened up to him. That was really the first time I think I really felt comfortable opening up to somebody outside of maybe a close family member, but not even to that level. That was really one of the first times at that level that I can really remember where I was able to pour out my emotions. And he gave me a hug. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. When you get a hug, it's like the worst thing, but the best thing you need. And I think that's really a nod to actually healing itself. Sometimes it's like an ugly or uncomfortable feeling, but it's just what you need at the time. And it was that hug. He embraced me, and having that embrace from him, I burst out, man. I burst out in tears, and it that was really the moment where I was like, yo, I got to really get in tune with my emotions. And so I kept writing through that. I went to college, and that was probably one of the second times that led to me having an eye-opening experience because I started to challenge a lot of beliefs I was having, whether that was religious beliefs, whether that was societal beliefs that were pushed on me. And I wanted to break free of all these narratives I had. And so I kept reading, I read a lot of different books. I would be on YouTube looking at different things, and I just wanted to become a better me. And over time, I started to shed a lot of these beliefs that I had or these biases that I had inside of me. And through that, man, it helped me, say, hey, I got to really, take control of, certain situations, but also learn how to let go, learn how to be comfortable with myself and my emotions and find positive ways to channel those. And it's still been, a work in progress, especially when you get into relationships, especially when you start to build your own family because I have a daughter. And so, that opened my eyes to a whole new level of what does it mean to be masculine or what does it mean to be a man and then been in a committed relationship to that when you're really doing deep work on that, because you're really trying to build yourself up in the midst of building something else outside of yourself. So I would say those they form like a collaborative unit to help support me in my growth. Along with I could name a lot of people that I've really been. I'm grateful for a lot of people being able to invest time in me, and they really saw certain potential. So I would be here for a whole hour if I could just name all the people that have helped me
Yeah.
in my journey with my emotions, or all the books. I mean, I do want to shout out one book, Four Agreements. Great book that can help you deal with like a lot of things. Not even just about masculinity, but just about being a person and being a better human in general.
Yeah, so many good things in there. First, like on your teacher, like that's why teachers are so amazing, right? To like make that connection with the student and it's so important because it just kicked off so many positive, healthy things. And then also using writing as a tool is so powerful. Poetry, free writing, journaling, so important for expressing yourself, and clearly was super helpful for you. Dealing with heartbreak kind of forces you to like look at your emotions. It's you can't control them, so you got to find a way to like express them. And then also like always like learning mindset, right? Like reading, going to college, pushing yourself, and then also like getting the confidence, because it takes some confidence and some strength to be vulnerable. And like as you've gotten older and you're like getting all these life experiences with like college and family, and wanting to better yourself, like it's a part of that, right? So I think that was the last thing you brought up, and I think it just, because it takes so much strength to be vulnerable, that like when you realize that you're able to do it, that's kind of like a good indicator for like, okay, I've grown a lot, because right. Like I think early on, like if you think about like a middle school or a high schooler, like there's not a lot of times where they can have like the emotional maturity and strength to, I don't know, like cry in class or talk about a challenge with peers, like because it is vulnerable, and like those are like structural places where they might not be like the safest place to do so. So if you're able to do that, then it's just a sign of like real strength that a lot of people don't get till later,
Right. Give me one more here. I'm gonna turn something off right quick.
Sure. Yeah. No, take your time.
All right, I'm back.
All good. I needed my coffee anyways.
I feel you. I feel you.
So what else did I want to ask you? I wanted to ask you about, one, I just want to write down the name of that book, because we have a little book rec section on our website.
Okay.
So you mentioned a book. I just want to write it down.
It's called The Four Agreements.
The Four Agreements. Okay. I think I've heard of that.
Yes, I definitely would recommend to read. A person in elementary school could read that book, man. And,
okay, cool.
And it just has those simple concepts. It's just four agreements that you make with yourself. Mm-hmm. And I love that book.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out, and then I want to stick it on our like resources page for people. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about was like, you mentioned. You mention like your own page? Like, are you working on anything kind of like related to this space? I'd love to hear more about that, if so.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, I really got back into the social media realm, mm-hmm. and starting to actively post again. And my posts are geared towards something similar, but it kind of covers like a plethora of growth resources, connecting with different people, and also sharing my creative work through my music and through my poetry. A lot of times I touch on themes of masculinity. You'll see glimpses of that being talked about, and just my experience growing up in society as a African American male. And just like different emotions that I had to go through with that. Also, I do live, so it's kind of similar to what we do. I get somebody on live like you just talked about, everyday people who have these experiences, men, women. They'll talk about things from health and wellness to um, mentality, growth, financial growth, just different things in those areas. I try to get every little topic that I can get in there, depending on what that person wants to speak about. And that's what I've been doing a lot of. And I've been chopping them up into little clips, and I've been doing like some little edits. The fun part has been doing a little edits I throw in there. And I try to put some like funny little videos inside of them to just keep people engaged. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've been doing a lot lately. And also for the nonprofit work, I do work for a nonprofit. It's called A Better Chance, A Better Community, also known as ABC2. It is based in Northeastern North Carolina, but we like to do work throughout North Carolina as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and our nonprofit is dedicated to specifically youth engagement, but we cover a lot of different topics such as social justice, environmental justice, financial literacy. We kind of have our hands in like a lot of different spaces because with our partners that we have. So that's also, you'll see that on my page as well, me promoting on various events that we have and initiatives that we're pushing as well.
Cool. That's awesome. No, I definitely want to incorporate that in sharing. Particularly, I'm sure we have some followers in North Carolina too, just to funnel some engagement there. So that's awesome and such cool work that you're doing, and like so awesome that you're sharing your perspective and opinions on your social media and getting it out there. The other thing I wanted to talk about was like a lot of the discussions we have, like we talk about people's perspectives on masculinity, like where they developed them, and then how they might differ from like either society in general or like the communities where they live. And so I'm curious, have you in you as you've like grown and like developed your perspective on masculinity, have you noticed any differences from like the way you think about yourself as a good man versus like how society or like the community you're from would think about that?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of directions I could take, but I would say one of the most important things that I've learned is not putting such a strong emphasis on necessarily what you do, but more so on how you make people feel. And that was a big thing I had to learn because I would see like men doing a lot, of what they would call work, whether that was building up this massive amount of wealth or having, these clothes or having these cars, and having, just all these things, and you would see what they were doing. But a lot of times they didn't realize the people that they were really impacting and talking about how do I want to make somebody feel. And so this is something I had to grow within to myself. I've had various job roles where I was just so entitled with doing something. I just wanted to have this idea of like, yo, I made it, man. I'm successful. Whatever idea of success that was curated through me growing up, through media programming, through my family trying to tell me what success was. So I don't even know if that idea of success was mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I thought, based on that thought, I was chasing that. And it was based on what I was doing. I'm like, look at all the things I'm doing. And I would also even notice that in certain relationship that you would have, whether that's with your friends or let's say your partner, and you'd be like, man, look at everything I'm doing. Look what I'm doing for you. And I even got lost in that. Sometimes I still find myself being consumed into that mindset of like, yo, I'm providing something for you. But we got to take a step back sometimes and ask, how am I making this person feel? Am I saying the right affirmations to this person? And am I nurturing my friendships and relationships with the people around me? And am I actually being a healthy person to my community? How are they feeling? And so that's one thing I'm working on now. I'm still a work in progress. I am not perfect by any stretch of imagination, but I would say I'm diligently working on trying to become better in that space of not focusing so much on providing and doing and working without looking at how I'm making the people around me feel, what type of impact emotionally am I having on those around me, whether that's my friends, whether that's my daughter, whether that's my partner, whether that's my family, whatever that may be. How do they feel? And
Yeah.
and so I think that's the big one of the biggest lessons. If I just had to condense everything.
No, it's such a good one. It's such a good one. And you mentioned like still working on it and always working on it. And it's always going to be a work in progress because there's so much programming telling guys that all your worth is your output. And so it's constantly fighting against that. And I think it's kind of I think it puts a lot of guys on a dead end path where if I like have this thing, this thing, this thing, then I'll finally be happy. But what makes you happy is like, sure, it can be this great job, but only if you're getting fulfillment from the job and like using your brain and working with a team, like that is what makes you happy. Or like a partner, like an actual, authentic, genuine relationship with a partner makes you happy, not like a flashy arm piece. Like that doesn't make you happy in the long run. Same thing with like the car. Like if it's getting you around efficiently and it makes you feel good driving it, sure. But like saying like the flashy like thing just to tick the box, you can collect all those things in the world. But if the people in those environments aren't actually connected to you, then I don't think there's enough happiness or fulfillment. I saw this quote recently that was like our brains are Paleolithic, our institutions are medieval, and our technology is godlike. And so like no matter how advanced like tech or the institutions are in our world, our brains are still just like human, like old human dinosaur brains that like that just want like human connection, you know? And so even if you fill your whole life up with all this like modern stuff and status symbols, our brains still just want to be loved and accepted with other humans, you know? So that like blew my mind.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you brought up that point. I know it's not a question that you asked, but just adding on to something that you said about we crave that human connection, and that's so true. Whether you're a man or woman or anything, whatever you identify as, it's something intrinsic inside of us that wants to, be connected to another human being, to want to feel an emotion. And so a lot of times we use these materialistic means. I'm not saying don't go buy something for yourself that's going to give you that, but don't let that become the bane of your existence. Don't let that define how you feel internally just because you were doing something outwardly or external. And so I'm glad you brought that point up because a lot of things that we work through. Since we're talking about masculinity as being masculine or being a male or being a man, whatever we define that as in society. And a lot of times we don't deal with, trauma. We don't deal with the grief that we go through. We don't deal with how we feel about severed relationships and friendships. We just like, okay, I'm just gonna keep it going. But take some time and work through those like hard emotions. It may be uncomfortable at first, but that's a good sign that there's growth happening when it's uncomfortable. And so that's one thing I do want to say to a lot of men is like, you got to take time for your emotions. And if you don't, you're going to see a lot of things affected in a negative way around you. And you're going to be wondering why is this going on if I'm doing everything right. But it's still something that you're missing. And that's that time that you have to have with yourself, which is being isolated and taking that time to understand where these emotions are stemming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it reminds me of the way you were describing, like getting the hug from your teacher, where like if you're in a fragile state, it's like that moment when someone's like, "Hey, are you doing all right?" And then you start crying, or like, "Hey, can I give you a hug?" And like you're like afraid of it because you know that it's gonna like unlock all this stuff, but you also at the same time it's like exactly what you need.
Right.
And I think it's such like I think everyone can relate to that, and I think that initial fear is like because it's vulnerable, right? And so I think there's that initial fear. And I think it's the same way with a lot of like dealing with hard emotions. Like there's initial fear of like turning and facing them and actually feeling them. But it's so important to like push past that initial fear and get to the point where you can start healing and working through them.
Absolutely.
So I love that you captured that. Like I'm thinking back to like, I don't know, 5 or 6 times where like, I can remember where like that's happened to me, where just I'm in a rough spot and someone's like, hey man, you doing all right? And it was like, no. I think everyone can relate to that. And you're like, damn, like I got. But it's good. It's good,
Good. Yeah, it's definitely good.
It's such a good like human like emotion to capture. Okay, so I know I only took half an hour from you, so I just want to be mindful of that. So at the like I said, I want to leave at the end. If there's any message you want to share to anyone watching, and or if like stuff you're working on that I can write down, so that when I share, like to link all your stuff, and we can do it over email too, but just like to open it up at the end if there's anything, and you don't need some like speech prepared, but if there's anything you want to share, like then yeah, I just wanted to make some time for that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you guys again. Huge shout out to Under the Hood Talk. What you guys are doing is amazing. It's beautiful. It's needed. And I'm grateful to be able to be a part of the conversation that's evolving. And I'm happy to see you guys' growth as well. As far as last messages, tell people to be honest. I want to tell people to be honest with yourself. Be completely honest with yourself. And that'll help you be honest with everyone around you, whether that is for men or women or kids. When you can be honest with yourself, it'll help you in a lot of different aspects because you will know what you need to work on. You can become aware of things that you are weak in, and you can become aware of your strengths as well. And so being honest, I would just say do that as much as possible. Sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable, but just please do that even in conversations. Don't try to shy away from honesty because later down the line, it'll definitely show itself. So that's one message I want to leave. And also you guys can follow and connect with me on my Instagram at Teewhid. That's TEEWHID _ on Instagram. And you can just tap in with me. I love saying tap in because it's just people tapping into something, and it's like an unlimited resource of potential when all of us get together as a collective. So being able to, be on my platform, I have poetry up there. I have lives with people. I have clips. I got a little bit of everything going on, and I'm still working on, getting everything together into this, beautiful portrait that I have in my mind. But definitely, I want to just, tell everybody keep going. Stay uplifted. Stay inspired. And just do your best to help somebody else, but first help yourself, then try to help somebody else.
Yeah.
Just do your best.
Yeah, no, it's such a good message. I appreciate you sharing that. And it's something that everyone it's just a good reminder for everyone to like check in with yourself. Because we forget, right? Life's busy. And I think if you forget to check in with yourself and be honest with how you're feeling, then it can kind of get buried and resurface later in a less healthy manner. And thanks for sharing your page. I'll make sure we link with everything, and definitely want to stay in touch. I'm sure there's a million things we could talk about for much longer. So I'd love to stay in touch and keep thinking about like how masculinity weaves into our lives. I think you express so many perspectives that are super helpful for guys to think through in like so many different dimensions in school and relationships,
right.
And like in growing up from like adolescence to like a man, like so many awesome themes that I'm glad we covered, but I'm sure there's a million more. So you have my email, and it was so awesome to meet you, Terrence. I would definitely love to stay in touch and like keep tabs on your work and your poetry and your page and all that. So yeah, really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you guys as well. I'm definitely going to stay updated on the content and post and promote what you guys are doing. So we're going to be in touch, man. Definitely.
Awesome. Well, so good to make the connection, man. I really appreciate the time and you sharing. And so, yeah, stay up.
You too, man. Peace.
Nice to meet you. Bye. Yeah. So what do you think it means to be a good man?
I don't think there's a single definition.
things that make up a good man are just the things that make up a good person. Someone who's honest, someone who's decent.
You're also willing to express yourself in a healthy way, and you're in touch with your emotions as well.